It's time to breathe again on the Breath of Fresh Air Shorty edition. So I'm your host, Charles, the host for today, and I am here to talk about some serious stuff that is going on in the world today. Of course, yesterday, March 11th, was the 1 year, if you want to call it an anniversary. I guess you can, but um, I don't know. I like to call anniversary something positive, and then this isn't exactly positive, but a lot of y'all know it was 1 year ago to the day from yesterday, where the sports world basically got turned upside down. The NBA decided they were going to postpone all activities. No games are being played. We know Rudy Gobert, the center for the Utah Jazz, he was the first known big time athlete to test positive for COVID. And after that, of course, the Jazz were in Oklahoma City at the time, and then that game got canceled. And I'm sure everybody remembers the clip where Dallas Mavericks owner Mark Cuban got the news on his phone that they were going to postpone the season, and he was basically just stunned by it. And I'm sure everybody remembers that clip. Uh, but that set the dominoes going forward. We know soon after conference tournaments, which we are having the privilege to enjoy this weekend, and I'll get to more on that in a minute. But the conference tournaments, you were in the middle of the conference tournaments, and games were being stopped midway through the games. And then, of course, March Madness, the NCAA tournament, got canceled altogether, and it just set forth a whole bunch of other leagues postponing or canceling events. Major League Baseball, we know it took them forever to get started on their season. Normally, they start around late March, early April. They didn't start their season till I believe August because they continue to fight between the owners and players, fighting over revenue, which was very tone deaf. That's another topic for another day. But we all know. Long story short, there was just a set of dominoes that got set into motion, and sports as we knew it stopped. There was nothing being played. The UFC slowly made the return, so at least that was live events that was starting to happen, but that was months down the road. And then the NBA, they got started around late July again, after figuring out how to do things. So they were in the bubble, and then the NFL came back, and college football came back. Now those seasons, of course, they weren't affected necessarily in terms of losing any games because their seasons were over before the COVID pandemic started taking shape throughout this country and throughout the world. But once football came back, there was a little bit of normalcy there. You can say what you want about how things were handled. Y'all have heard me on numerous shorties and webcasts rail on the Big Ten conference and the Pac-12 conference for the way they handled their athletics, and trying to say they weren't going to do anything, but then they saw the other leagues do uh, what they were going to do with football, and then all of a sudden they decided to come back. But you heard me rail on them multiple times. It's not really about that. But I think everybody is they were trying to figure out what they were dealing with, and then they figured to err on the side of caution, keep fans out of the events. Most places still don't have fans, but fans are starting to come back in some of these events during the football season. Fans sporadically were able to be in the stadium, whether it was 10% capacity, 20% capacity, whichever one. But they were slowly starting to come back as people were figuring out how to deal with it. And I think there's some cases, even today, where we're trying to figure out how to deal with everything. Our lives got flipped on its head, and then you had on top of that all the racial unrest that was going on in the aftermath of the death of George Floyd. So it was a lot that all of us were trying to process in the midst of the year that followed after March 11th of last year. And to say it was rough for a lot of us, that would be the understatement. But pretty much everything was affected. We had, like, even our show, we were just kind of going through it, seeing how we were going to continue to broadcast. Felt like we could throw in a few best of episodes. And if nothing else, we just hope, Patrick and I, we just hope we were release some sort of a getaway to have you guys just kind of enjoy the entertainment value, not necessarily the sports value. I know this is a sports show, but hopefully you guys could find us as a way to just kind of get away, whether it was for an hour, for 30 minutes, for 10 minutes on a shorty, whatever one. Hopefully you guys could find us as a release from all the daily grind and the daily suck, honestly, of what we were going through. But I think the main thing that I wanted to leave this shorty with is for us just to be thankful in every sense of the word. To be thankful that we're still here. Of course, this pandemic has taken away a lot of lives. And so I hope those people who have lost loved ones, who have had people affected by this virus, I hope they can find the strength to carry on their memory. And I'm really, really sorry for their losses, man, because this is it's still going on and we're still in it. It's not over yet, but we are coming out of it, and that's a good thing. But it is about just being thankful that sports is able to come back, because at its core, sports is a release. Sports is a way to get away from those daily grinds, and a lot of people depend on sports to honestly help pay bills. And I'm not just talking about the athletes themselves. I'm talking about those concession stand workers, the public transportation people, the security who's out there. Oops, excuse me, who's out there monitoring parking. So a lot of those guys and gals, they can depend on that to help pay some bills. And so to be able to be there and kind of doing, I guess, something close to what we normally would be going through, that's a good thing. But also, if you are in these other leagues, I hope they realize the value of fans and the people, just simply because, look, we didn't have sports for 3 months, 4 months, but somehow we were able to carry on. And we kind of got used to not having sports around. And we just found other ways to get through. I know on the show we just were talking about other topics besides sports that we would just sprinkle in there. So I hope I hope they realize, hey, sports, I get it. It is part of life, but it's not life. And you know, everybody that before they were athletes, before you're anything, you're a human being first. And at the end of the day, you have to find a way to move on. We were finding a way to move on and hang in there until sports came back. And I just think, really, just all of us, as we're trying to come out of this thing, we're starting to turn the corner on a lot of stuff. I know down here in Texas, the governor, he lifted the mask mandate, and the Rangers are over here talking about 100% capacity. We'll see how that works. I don't know, but we're showing signs. But this is a long way from being over as you were seeing in the ACC tournament coming back to college basketball. In the ACC tournament, Duke, they had a positive COVID test. They couldn't play their game against, I think they were going to play Florida State, and it got it got canceled. And Duke is out, and their season's probably over because they didn't have a good regular season, so they probably won't be in the NCAA tournament. And then today, Virginia had a COVID test. Now this is the number one seed in the ACC tournament and the defending national champions, since there wasn't March Madness last year, and they had to go because of the COVID test. So I mean, this thing is still here. We are making strides, but we are still here. And because we are still here, I mean, in terms of having to deal with this virus, we can't take anything for granted now. We've come too far. We've been through a lot together, and hopefully we can stay together, beat this thing, and maybe someday soon we can get back to normal. But we're not there yet. So we have to continue to be vigilant, be smart, be safe, and let's just stick together because divisiveness is not getting us anywhere. We have to come together, stay together, and just be thankful for life. Well, that's all I'm breathing on for today. I hope I wasn't all over the place with my thoughts today because I feel like I kind of was, but just let me know if I was, and if you have some thoughts and feedback on what I said today, please share it, and I'll be down to get back with y'all and have that conversation. So I hope everybody is being safe, being smart. Take care and have a good, healthy weekend. So we'll talk soon.